The way that this guy went from this point to the top of the tree in the UFC and broke all the boundaries is absolutely fascinating. You're going to love it. I'm not going to introduce him. Watch this.
Conceive, believe, achieve. Shut the fuck up. There's not a single person in the world I would rather take the belt off than this smug mother. Gym that I was with, they turned out to be a bunch of crooks. They were stealing my money, they weren't paying my sponsorship and all kinds of things, and obviously we parted ways, and I didn't have a team at all, so I went out to America. I had some contacts there, and the plan was just to be out there, you know, for a few camps or whatever, take it as it goes. And anyway, that's 11 years later. So to answer your question, yes, America's great, but it's full of Americans. That's the only issue. Heard this 1,000 times, but you know, like a lot of people, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was younger. Left school at 16, string of dead-end jobs, you know, and I met my wife, and we had 2 children, and you know, you work your backside off, and at the end of the week, still skint, you know. And I remember this guy that I work with, Mick, my supervisor. He said, "Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life?" And I said, "No, not at all." He said, "Well, you need to give it some thought." He said, "Because you seem like a pretty smart guy." He said, "But before you know it, Michael, 20 years is going to pass, and you're still going to be here. Seems like yesterday when I walked in this factory, and I'm now almost retired, you know?" So I did give it some thinking, some thought. And I kept coming back to the same thing. And I went in one day and I said, "Mick, I figured it out what I want to do." And he takes his tool belt off and he rubs his hands together. He goes, "Okay, what is it? What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm going to be a professional fighter." And he was like, "Oh my God, I thought you were smart." I said, "No, trust me, Mick, I know what I'm doing." Obviously, I did a lot of martial arts when I was a kid. But yeah, you're right, to your point, you know, mixed martial arts, UFC, nobody really even knew what that was. But I was told, informed that, because I, like anyone, I said, "Well, isn't that dangerous?" And the guy that told me about it said, "Well, I'll never put you in a life-changing fight unless there's a life-changing check." And I thought, wow, life-changing check, I like the sound of that. First ever professional fight, I got paid 0, not a single dollar or pound. So, but you got to work your way up. But I remember at the time, you know, everyone back home in Clitheroe, they were all talking about me behind my back. They all thought I was an idiot. They all thought, what, just because, you know, I was a bit of a tough lad, if you will. What, you're going to become a professional fighter, you're already broke, you're already in debt, now you're quitting work, you're moving away to another city, abandoning your children and your wife, you know, so, but I always believed in myself, you know, and that was truly my skill. You know, I've always been a fighter, even from the day I was born. My dad's in here somewhere and he'll tell you, you know, I've just always been that guy, I've always been cut from that cloth. You know, and that was my skill. And I think that everyone has a skill. You know, everyone's good at something, you know, and you just got to figure out what that is and then be brave enough to try and execute a game plan. You know, you figure out what your skill is, you think, where can that skill take me and how do I get there? But that's the easy part, talking about it, sitting there and talking about it. Getting off your backside and doing it and making the sacrifices and starting right at the beginning and at the bottom, that's the hard part. And fortunately, after a few years, we kind of made it work.
You did all right, mate, you did all right. Good things, I suppose, that were currently in your life, how does that then get affected with that single-mindedness?
Well, yeah, you do have to be selfish. If anyone's trying to become the best in something, you have to be single-minded, you know, and you know, I hear fighters still to this day, they complain, "Oh, I'm missing birthdays, and I'm missing that, and I'm not going to fight because I've got a birthday coming up." It's like, what are you talking about? Do you know the amount of birthdays I've missed? It's not because I'm a bad father, it's because I'm putting them first. I'm trying to provide a future, I'm trying to provide, you know, financial security and set them up and hopefully leave them a few quid when I'm dead. And that's just the way it goes. So what was the question?
How does
the selfishness,
that single-mindedness affect, for example, I've no doubt that you had mates back in the day that you couldn't no longer be mates with because you were going down this path,
yeah, well,
and they were still living this path.
100%, and that's the tricky one still to this day, because I have some dear old friends that I've known for a very, very long time, but I'm on a different trajectory in my life now, you know what I mean, and they're
not on the trajectory. They're on the same thing. They're having the same conversation they had 20 years ago. You know, drinking too much, etc., partying like crazy. You know, and you know, you've got to move on sometimes. They're like, oh, you've changed. Said, yeah, for the better. I've grown up. I've matured. I want more out of life. But yeah, you got to be selfish. But you're being selfish for well, I was being selfish for my family. You know what I mean? So it wasn't me being selfish because it's all about me. Like, I always wanted to be champion of the world because I wanted the financial security. I never wanted to be champ because of my ego. I never wanted to say, oh, I'm the best in the world. Of course, that's nice. Of course, every fighter wants to achieve that. But I wanted to become the champ because that was the pinnacle of the sport, which is then meaning you're going to reap more rewards.